All righty.
Are you click or are you clack? Welcome, everybody, to the May edition, which is the May Day edition of Tucson Macintosh Users Group meeting. We welcome our sustaining members, new members, and first-time guests. Is there anybody here who's here for the first time? I think I recognize everybody here so far. Well, welcome. Remember, you get a free raffle ticket, and Kurt is going to be taking attendance, and he will fill in the physical slips of paper for each of the members. To be eligible, the screen name displayed must match the record of your current TMUG membership. If we can't identify you, your name will not be placed in the raffle. Remember that our Zoom meetings and mail lists with our Zoom meetings and mail lists, you can participate and benefit every month of the year, regardless of your location. This is the Memorial Day edition of the TMUG meeting. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, June 21st at this same virtual location. Next month, we will have the Ask Me Anything session hosted by Kevin, if he deigns to grace us with his presence next month. He's on special assignment at an undisclosed location tonight.
We'll be at the same time and the same bat channel.
Right, exactly. We will have a special presenter next month, Lucian Davis, who will be showing us how he creates art using Procreate on his iPad. We will welcome Lucian when he arrives next month. We did have some plans to try and hold a in-person social meeting in May, but last month when we took a straw poll, there just wasn't enough interest. We're going to revisit that possibility after the end of the monsoon season. Remember, please be polite and mute your microphone when you are not speaking. This will help everyone else enjoy the meeting. The new virtual raffle during our Zoom meetings, last month's winner was Melissa Davis. Congratulations, Melissa, who's down in the lower right corner on my screen. Don't know where she is on yours, but we're happy to have you be a winner.
Thank you.
We will pick another winner this month from the list of attendees that I am trying to compile while doing this other stuff. If you are not signed up for the TMUG mail lists, please subscribe and subscribe to the calendars. This will put events right on your Mac's calendar automatically. The TMUG treasure hunt raffle has been discontinued. We've been getting fewer and fewer entries. I'm sure that the few people who were entering are unhappy about that because they had a really good chance of winning. Last month's winner and the final winner for the TMUG treasure hunt was Tommy Friedman. Congratulations, Tommy. We had a special interest group meeting that took place on Friday, May 6th. It was the TMUG AHPSIG, Apple HomePod special interest group meeting. It was a lively and informative discussion. We thank all the participants, the questioners, and the answerers. Do you have it was very well received, and it was so good that another iPod mini arrived at our house today. So
Yay.
yay, yeah, yay.
I
Does
mean,
anybody have any suggestions for another special interest group meeting? And a special interest group meeting would be a topic that is probably too narrow in scope for a topic during the main meeting, but this way we can all meet and all ask questions and stuff. If you have a topic in mind, you can send me an email, you can message me in the chat, you can send me a smoke signal, or enter it into the TMUG Talk mail lists.
And you got a HomePod Mini, not an iPod Mini, right?
Did I say, I meant HomePod Mini? I don't know what I said, but I meant, you know, these little orange things about the size of a
Right.
baseball. So that SIG meeting was productive, at least for Apple Corporate. They made a sale out of it. Now we have two. Don't
Are they
know
left
what
and right, or are they in separate rooms?
right now they're in separate rooms. I have no idea what they're going to be done with them. It's not my decision, and it wasn't my credit card either. You can also submit special interest group meeting topics to on the feedback form while using the link in the chat window. I don't know if Bob's put it in there yet, but it will be in there, I'm sure. The July meeting for TMUG has been canceled due to MacStock, which happens on July 23rd and 24th. But stand by for a MacStock update in August. Are there any other announcements? Is there something I forgot? Okay, I'd like to lean again on, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. And it would also be helpful for you to raise your hand using the reactions button at the bottom of the window, because that way you will see you in the participants list, and you also get prioritized. The first one to raise their hand that way will be the first one called upon. Are there any for sales or wanted to buy items? Then we're going to move forward with tonight's program, and I'm going to turn it over to Ridge for the tech update. Ridge, are you ready to take the yoke and the controls? And
Oh, yes.
okay, go right ahead.
Okay, let's move out some of this stuff out of the way so I can see the screen. How's that?
Looks good here.
Okay, this is the software updates for the month, and you can see that we have, let me see what I can do with the stuff on the screen here. Let me stop sharing for a bit. And let me change that to 1. Yeah, I'll just stick that down there. That'll be fine. But this other one I can't get rid of.
We don't see it, Ridge. We just see your PowerPoint.
I know that's true, but I'm getting this big black strip across the top of the screen. However, I'll just continue to. We're still there?
Yep, looking good.
Okay. And then we can see that Google had a lot of them, and for not only the Mac, but also Chrome for the iOS had 4 updates. Firefox got 2, one for iOS and one for the Mac. And Little Snitch got 2 updates, and that'll run in Big Sur and higher. Microsoft Office got its main programs updated as well, and Text Expander, if you use that, it'll work with Mojave or higher. And Quicken is now 6.7, and this version of Zoom is 5.10.4. And then the VLC media player, if you're using that. And Apple had the Big Sur update and the HomePod software update and the Logic Flow, GarageBand, MainStage, and AirTag firmware, and the Studio Display firmware. All of those got updated. And they've got Monterey as well, updated, the Safari update for Big Sur and Catalina. And then Catalina got its own security update. And then the iPod and the iPod OS got updated to 15.5, and TV iOS and Watch OS had 2 updates, and Xcode for those programmers, it got updated. And as far as coming in beta, so far we've got all the updates that we're going to get, and then we'll have to wait for later on and see if there's going to be any more. And the next event Apple's going to have is Worldwide Developer Content Conference, June 6th, and that's when the keynote's going to be at 10 a.m. our time. And we're going to recover that entire event at our next meeting. So be sure to come. And their financial report for the second quarter of 2022, Apple did very well. It had that revenue was up 9% and sales were up 1.3 billion. iPhone sales were up 2 billion. And services grew 17%. And they declared a dividend as well. That was 5% higher than last year. And the breakdown of what they sold is on that pie chart on the left. And as far as Apple 8 issues, Studio Display was reported online to have some issues with its onboard camera, and the Monterey 12.4 contains access to the firmware fix for that display. The firmware display 15.5. And there were a lot of reports online of problems with the M1 Mac, the USB Thunderbolt ports with very slow writes and unexpected connections. And they're going to need Apple to issue a permanent fix. If you got a Mac with an Intel chip, there's no problems. And Apple has announced that their server software is no longer available. It was first introduced back in March of 1999, and its final version is version 5.12.2, and it works with Monterey as well now. How about iPod Touch is no longer going to be produced, Apple said the other day. Or no, that was last week. They said that the iPod Touch is no longer going to be produced, and the remaining inventory is being sold as we speak. And it's becoming unavailable in various places. And its name will be officially retired. And that original iPod back in 2001 supposedly revolutionized our interaction with digital music and eventually added Windows to its interoperability. And it eventually came in several versions: the Shuffle, Mini, the Nano, U2, and Red, and the Classic, and the Touch. And here are some of them, what they looked like.
I owned a bunch of those.
Oh yeah, and we some of us had at least one of each one of them. Now, have you tired of the color of your mouse pointer? You can now change the color of your mouse pointer in Monterey. In the Finder, you go to System Preferences, Accessibility, and you select Pointer and Display. And some examples are shown of what you can do with the mouse pointer. I've got one that's got a black outline and a red fill. I'm using that on my new 16-inch MacBook Pro running Monterey. And here's where it is. And the accessibility part of system preferences, and you can see the pointer button there, and you click that, and on the left-hand side, you'll see where you can click on display, and you'll be able to change the size of the pointer and its outline color and its fill. As far as rumors go, and everybody wants to see everything Apple makes become renewed or replaced at the Worldwide Developers Conference next month. But the only likely remaining rumor is that the 24-inch iMac may be stuck with an M1 chip until the M3 is available in 2023. But whatever happens at Worldwide Developer Conference, we're going to be presenting a complete report of it at our June meeting. And another rumor has Apple replacing the Lightning connector on its iPhone lineup with a USB connector, and supposedly that is being tested now. And of course, we still have iron on or so on patches and pins, and the next in-person event we have, everyone who's a member will get a pin. Thanks for your attention so far for that. Now, items of security interest for software updates that had security fixes that were fixed. Adobe had InDesign, InCopy, Cold Fusion, Prime, FrameMaker, and Character Animator all got updated with many security flaws fixes. And Google had a bunch for the Mac. And one important one for those who are running it on iOS. And Mozilla updated Firefox for the Mac and for iOS. And Microsoft had security fixes in its two apps, 365 and 2019. Apple, all of these apps got updated with security fixes. And there's Monterey and Mac and Big Sur that had over 50 fixes in each one of them. It is reported. And of course, there's the one from Catalina. It got its own security update. Now, here's as far as cybercrime goes. I read today that iPhones can be affected by malware even while they're turned off, according to research by Secure Mobile Networking Lab at TU Darmstadt, as reported by ThreatPost. Apparently, when an iPhone is turned off, most wireless chips stay on. For instance, upon user-initiated shutdown, the iPhone remains locatable via the Find My network. And if the battery runs low, the iPhone shuts down automatically and enters a power reserve mode. Yet, users can still access credit cards, student passes, and other items in their wallet. And on recent iPhones, Bluetooth, near-field communication, and ultra-wideband, those functions keep running after power off, and all three wireless chips have direct access to the secure element. And that malware upload has been demoed and practiced by the Secure Mobile Networking folks. And it's got to have an Apple fix. So that's about that for that. And now, thanks for your attention overall, and stay safe as far as the security aspects of our presentation goes. Thank you for your attention, and I'll do stopping the share now.
Thanks, Reg.
Thank you, Reg. Appreciate all your work. Next, we have Roger, who has become an expert at getting rid of your landline and what are the alternatives. So whenever you're ready, Roger, take it away.
Okay. Let me just make a few little adjustments here. And there we go. And back to Zoom. And share our keynote screen. And voila. So we're going to talk about telephone choices, landline versus Voice over Internet Protocol, also known as VoIP or VoIP. So, a landline for our discussion will be defined as a telephone line that comes from your local telephone company. And in our case here in Arizona, it's CenturyLink. You can also get a voice over IP line from your local cable company like Cox or Comcast, also known as Xfinity to fool people. And you can also use a bunch of other different voice over IP services, such as Google Voice. And they also have what has been called the home phone service from AT&T and Verizon, where they give you a little interface box, which actually talks to the cellular network, but you can plug in your analog, like your cordless phone, to that box and have it operate just like a landline. So here are some of the various providers of these voice over IP services. A Magic Jack, and I'm going to give the pricing on the CenturyLink and the Cox and the Comcast are roughly between $20 and $30 a month. So here we have Magic Jack, which has been around for a long time, and they have various subscription plans. They had a 5-year subscription plan, which they discontinued at the beginning of the year. So now their best deal is a 3-month plan, a 3-year plan, and that averages out to $3.50 per month. Another popular service from the people that were commenting on the web is called Net Talk, and it is $2.75 a month. You probably may have used Vonage once a long time ago. It was kind of the first one to really hit the home market. I know I had a Vonage line for a while. However, it's kind of expensive at $26.99 a month, plus those taxes and fees. People did comment that their customer service was very good. So I guess you get what you pay for. And then Uma is a free phone service. Again, you have to pay those taxes and fees after you buy their interface box. So let's go and look at the Uma website. So I'm going to have to change. There we go. Let me go back to Zoom and switch our screen sharing. So here's the interface box from Uma. And this one, they have 3 different models. This one costs $99. It's the least expensive. So you get free US calling. You get a mobile app. They say they have Pure Voice HD technology. And now they have Amazon Echo integration. So you can tell your Echo to operate your phone service. Like most of these services, they do have 911. So it will know where you're calling from if you call 911. And like many of the other services, they have low cost international calling. Many services include Canada and Mexico for free, or included, I guess you might say. And so they have a built-in answering function. And then they have some upgrades. Their Premier service gives you more features. So this just kind of gives you an idea what some of these services offer. You can port your existing number. And if you get their Premier service, they waive the $39.99 fee for porting your number. And they also have a Bluetooth capability to pair your cell phone. And they have enhanced and advanced network and firewall security. So that is what they do. So let's switch back here. So some other services, basically all the services give you the basics that you're used to. Caller ID, voicemail, which means you don't have to have an answering machine, call waiting, and 911 or E911 as it's many times referred to. And then three-way calling. So this is another interface. This is for Google Voice. Google Voice is free. The late breaking news that I learned when researching for this program was that the ObiTalk, which is the name of this interface, is no longer going to be supported by Polycom, who bought ObiHi, which is the parent company of ObiTalk. And they have published that this will be at end of life on December 18th, 2023. So I was all ready to promote Google Voice and the ObiTalk interface. You can see here how this interface works. It's very similar to the other interfaces from the different companies. So you plug in your Ethernet cable from your router right here. You plug your phone in, and I don't know, I think it was Tom that was talking about keeping his landline because he wanted a fax capability. Well, I have this device and I have successfully sent faxes over this second port here. So these can send and receive fax communication. So before we go to questions, I have a couple of more examples here I want to show you. So let's switch back to Safari. And where did Safari go? Here we go. Okay, so here is the Magic Jack. If you've used Magic Jack before and haven't looked at it lately, like I haven't, it costs $49.99 plus those taxes and fees. It's on sale for $10 off. And they have added some services. They now have a cellular service that you can subscribe to for a separate additional charge. And again, you can keep your existing number when you decide to switch to Magic Jack. So a lot of people have been using Magic Jack for a long time and seem to think it works pretty well. And they're one of the ones that include Mexico and Canada in their basic charge. You can see that here. And they also have free international calling, I think, for 60 different companies. So here, now I'm not sure. Oh, I'm sorry. They just include Canada. They don't include Mexico. So here's the rates for different countries. Mexico, 2.8 cents a minute. UK, 2.2 cents a minute. So you do have to pay for international calling. There's another one that a lot of people liked on the internet called Net Talk. And most of these companies have a business service as well as a residential service. They all, some of these companies also will sell you a phone that's mostly for businesses, that the interface is built into the phone. And they even have a cordless phone capability. So that's kind of nice if you don't already have a cordless phone. And they also have a iOS app that works with their service. And so that kind of gives you an idea of the, they also have an interface box, which you would buy one-time charge. Let's see if we can get that picture up here. It should be under products. So you see they have several different call plans, including free, after you buy their interface. And I had that interface box up here. Let's try another shot here. Now that's the page we're on. So let's click on this one. Okay, well, anyway, the interface would be very similar to the one we showed for the Obi Talk. So that kind of gives you a survey of what's available. There are numerous other companies that offer voice over IP services at different price points. So any questions?
Well, I'll jump in here and say that it would be interesting. Susan has a question. Interesting to learn how you have approached this issue and this problem. Not you, Roger, you, everybody else. We have dropped our landline altogether and just use our cell phones. And it reminds me of something I predicted, dreamt of, or something in the past, where sooner or later you wouldn't be, at that time when you made a phone call, you were calling a place. Remember when we all had only one phone in the house, and if you got a chance to talk to grandma, that you had to do it really fast because it was long distance? And I felt that sooner or later you'd be calling a person rather than a place. And wherever that person was, the call would be routed to them. Well, with cell phones, it kind of is and kind of isn't. But so I know that Susan has a question. So why don't we go to Susan?
I'm
And
unmuted. Hi. Okay, I'm assuming that everything you mentioned past the page with Vonage on it relies on electricity.
That's correct.
Okay, so the benefit of the landline is that it still works if the electricity goes out. Is
Well,
that
let me clarify that point.
okay?
The landline will still work if the electricity goes out if you're using a old-fashioned conventional phone with no features.
Okay,
If you're using a cordless phone, it has to have AC power. There are a few cordless phones on the market that have a built-in battery that'll last for a little while with a power failure, but unless you have just an old-fashioned phone that just has a touch-tone pad and that's it, it gets its power from the phone company.
so we still don't have something that can hold its own if the electricity goes out.
you also
Not-
need to
I
remember
mean,
that
other than landline.
you you also have to remember that landline phones rely on the line. If the line goes away, then it doesn't matter if you have power and they have power. If the line's gone, it's gone. And I think that some to most cell towers have an alternate source of power. Maybe it's a generator, maybe it's batteries. They talk about the people keeping the cell phone system up and running in Ukraine by going and repairing the towers every day. And I think that it's quite possible that cell phones are vulnerable in one way and less vulnerable in another way. And landlines are vulnerable and less vulnerable in their own way.
Yeah, the thing, well, how do you charge a cell phone? We require electricity to charge a cell phone, is that correct? Unless we have a battery that's like a generator,
Solar,
right?
solar. There are solar chargers available which will charge your cell phone. You just have to apply money and have a place that the charger can see the sun. You can also have your own uninterruptible power supply and put your stuff that's mission critical on that. What that does is it requires you to take over the provisioning of power at your site, but it's possible. It's possible. So that's something worthwhile considering.
So if we have solar panels on our roofs, which are linked to TEP, we cannot set up our own generating system or solar source of energy for a cell phone, for instance.
No, you can have batteries that the solar panels charge. So you can have a choice of selling it back to the public utility, in this case, Tucson Electric Power, or you can send that power to your on-site batteries. As
Okay,
I don't think you were here in the first hour, but
no,
my home in Choya Bay, for several years, that's the way I operated, is I had solar panels. I had no electric power from the electric utility. And so that power went into large batteries, which ran the house at night when there was no sun out.
well, I'm glad to hear that. I was looking into that in the 70s, and it was the batteries that were the hitch to the
Yeah.
whole thing.
It's much better now, thanks to Elon and his crowd.
Yeah,
They produce this humongous battery industry, which we can capitalize on.
good, okay.
There
Well,
are, there are multiple ways of charging your cell phone. I have a battery here with a big old flashlight on this side that will charge, it'll charge up my iPad a couple of times, maybe 3. It'll charge the cell phone several times. I also have a solar panel that puts out into a USB cord that I sometimes use to charge this big old yellow battery, which has a solar cell on it, but it never did work.
Yeah.
I also have a car.
Yeah, there you go.
And I have a place to plug in my phone in the car. So I could keep my phone charged a long time.
days,
if-
in other
if
words.
if the power went out.
You're gonna have to take personal responsibility for that. You can't just
Absolutely.
shovel it off to the power company, but it is possible.
Okay,
You know, and those little batteries, everybody should have a couple of these little batteries around that they keep charged and then discharge and then recharge regularly. I have another one here that white spot will charge my watch. But it also has a USB out power port on the edge. So I could use this to recharge my phone, probably not giving it a full charge, but it could give me something. So
So-
have something around to recharge your phone with.
right. So are there, that should be a Christmas thing, recommending solar chargers.
I'm
I would have-
guessing there might be something like that on the TMUG Geek Gift Guide presentation.
Okay.
I don't know. It could happen.
You might want to order it now.
Yes, it may take that long.
Okay.
You
Order
also want
something
to
now.
keep those batteries out of the heat too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, here we just have short lack of electricity at a time, I've noticed. But back east, it could be days.
It's all
So,
those trees. It's all those trees that they put the power lines underneath.
mm,
We
yeah,
don't have that problem. We don't have any water, but we don't have those power outage problems either.
yeah, I don't know.
Priorities.
Yeah, we do have some. I do, but I don't know if it's weather or cars running into power stations or what, but.
All of.
All right,
There was an article recently, from a press release from Tucson Electric Power. And they were saying that they have a 16% surplus of power planned for.
Mm.
And but they also hinted that if everybody turned on their air conditioner at the same time,
Yeah.
they might exceed that 16%
Yeah.
capacity. And we could have, like they had in California, rolling brownouts where you might not get electricity for a half a day or something like that. So that's definitely a possibility of not having power here in Tucson if it gets too hot for too long.
that happened to me after surgery. I came home to my house and the air conditioner had died out, and it was in June. So I spent 3 weeks with a friend, thank God, while I was waiting to get the air conditioning back in service.
All right.
My house went up into the 90s. That was the temperature in my house.
We went away on vacation one time and came back to a hot house and melted toilet wax rings.
Oh, my goodness.
Flush your toilet and
Wow.
so that's wax under there. It can melt.
That's really,
Yeah, don't leave your house and not air conditioned for months at a time.
Oh, boy.
Lesson learned the hard way.
Roger, I got my hand up. And one of the things that I put it up for was I really enjoyed your presentation in terms of showing me all of the possibilities and that sort of thing. But I look at that and I say, that's way too much to eat. It's like, how do you know what to choose? Do you have any recommendations? Essentially, I need a VoIP gateway that my internet service is through Cox, and I'm completely battery backed up and with uninterruptible power supplies and so forth for the internet side. But I need to have some way to feed that out, probably into a phone system that my wife would like to use. So it would be like maybe a cordless that emulated the old classic landline, and maybe an old classic answering machine. So given that those are my specs, have you got any suggestions?
Yes, well, I think any of those ones that I highlighted, and again, I just showed the tip of the iceberg. There's a bunch of voice over IP providers, and so, but those were the ones that stood out in my research, and came from different articles, saying here are the 5 best. So those were in the top 5 of some of those articles.
A thing that I worry about is that whenever I see a field that has 50 or 100 different providers, I know that none of them is doing very well, and that they're probably not paragons of reliability and like the old landline telephone system was. So I'm fishing for the top vendors. Like, for example, I use consumer cellular, but one of the reasons that I feel quite okay about using it is that they are what they call mobile virtual network operators for AT&T. They resell AT&T. So basically, I reuse I use AT&T, and the reliability and so forth is very good. That's very important to me, especially at, I'm 80 years old, and it's important because it could be a life issue for me, life-saving issue, or my wife for that matter. So my criteria are different. I don't need to save every penny. I need to have reliability.
Yes. Well, I think any of those that I highlighted would probably be good choices.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, we were actually in the blackout yesterday. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but there were about 8,000 customers without electricity from about 3:30 in the afternoon to about 8 o'clock at night. And I dug out my old battery pack that my boss had picked up years ago in Korea. And it's great because it's almost the same size as my iPhone XR. And these are really good to have around. Let's see, that's the front. And,
Okay.
it's got a lightning cable on it that, you can plug in, and it's also got a variety of different USB setups and so on. But this stuff's out there and it's available. And, you can get, if you don't get the backups that Apple has, which are pretty expensive, that'll stick like a magnet on the back of your phone. It really brought home to Sue and I the importance of, having these things around and having them charged up. Because, if you, like we've several of us have alluded to, if you got a medical situation and you don't want your phone to run down, especially if it's the only phone you got. So, and the other quick point I was going to make, when I was out in the San Francisco Bay Area, we used to do a lot of earthquake preparedness stuff. And somebody asked the question about their landline. And one of the experts at the meeting said, well, don't be so sure, because landlines nowadays all rely on, the internet and various sundry things. If I call Berkeley from here, chances are that call goes in and out of the internet about 3 or 4 times. It's not all going on overland cable. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a landline is going to be that much better. And like we've been mentioning too, there's a lot of work to keep the cell towers moving and working. And, the Ukraine has got to be just absolutely amazing that they're doing that. Of course, the Russians were also using the Ukrainian telecom system, which wasn't the smartest thing in the world to do, because the Ukrainian intelligence just tuned right in and knew where all those generals were. Anyway, won't go there. But anyway, so that's it. Hope that's helpful. But, having something like this around to back up your phone for power, especially, if you can't go charge it in the car or something like that, which, presumably one could do, but it's a heck of a lot easier just to pull out a battery pack and plug it in if you need it.
Good points.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Melissa?
My question is, out of all the services that you mentioned, do all of them offer transcription, and how good is their transcription service?
I don't know off the top of my head. I didn't look into that part. But
Google
my
Voices
guess,
is pretty good.
pardon me?
Google Voice has pretty good transcription when it's
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. So I didn't see any, that listed as a feature with any of the other ones. As
It
you
is a
pro-
good feature to look out for because it's really helpful for screening out the spam calls.
Right.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks for your participation.
Are there any questions of other nature? Any other regular questions or questions about other Apple tech that you'd like to bring up at this time? Crickets. All I hear are crickets.
I actually did have a question about, I didn't get to raise my hand fast enough, about the Google Voice. Roger, you were saying it uses that equipment that's going to end in 2023, but surely they'll have something else.
That's an excellent question. So the equipment is only needed if you want to have a conventional phone in your house, like a Panasonic cordless phone, for example. So you can use Google Voice on your computer or on your iPhone without that interface box. So it'll still work through your computing devices. It just won't have that. In fact, what they've actually said is you won't be able to sign up for Google Voice after that end of life date in 2023, I think it was. But some of the people that were talking in various forums that I looked at thought that maybe the service would still operate. You just couldn't initiate a new Google Voice account and interface it with that box. And then, of course, everybody's hoping that there's going to be some workaround that comes up, before that support from the company goes away. So we've got some time to see if that works. And then a lot of people also said that same interface will work with other voice over IP services. So it's not, it's just losing the Google Voice capability or initiating a new account on that device with Google Voice. So there's a lot of conjecture about, what might or might not happen. The company Polycom, or I think they're called Poly now, that bought that interface box company, is not given any alternatives on their side. So it's going to be up to the general public, the interested parties, to come up with a solution.
I had a piece of information that might be helpful. There are some really inexpensive cords available, cables that you can use to plug into your car, whatever power outlet capability it has, and then you can plug those into your iPhone. And the cables, $2 or $3 is probably more than what they cost.
I would caution you for using a $2 or $3 12-volt adapter cable, because I've heard of people who use an inexpensive cable like that and it damaged their iPhone. So I would stick with a brand name that you
Okay.
know and trust.
But they
Falcon
are
or
available.
Anchor.
Sure. And if my car has USB 5-volt outlets in it, and I was thinking of that as the cheap cable to go. It's a foot long to go from my USB outlet that my car provides into the iPhone. I think that would probably be okay.
Well, there is circuitry in a lightning connector. So if it's not approved, it's not past the MFI made for iPhone
Right.
standard, then I would avoid it like the plague.
Okay, that's good to know.
Are you, Roger, are you saying I shouldn't buy USB cables at the quick stop gas station?
Not
They
only
have them
am
in
I,
pretty
but
colors.
I've been saying that for years.
Yes, avoid the ones that are sold next to the M&Ms in the checkout line. But get the M&Ms. Those are okay.
Kurt, during the Ask Me Anything, you had a story about Cox Cable and the landline provided through them. But not everybody here now was at that part of the meeting. Would you go through that again? After you unmute your phone, your microphone?
Cox for years has had this deal with a bundle, which is internet, cable, and phone. And it used to be, I found out just this past week, that used to be centered around the phone. The phone you couldn't fool with, but the internet and the cable parts of it were kind of the appendages that hung off it. And they have just changed that now, so that the internet now is their big deal, and the other things can be dropped from your program if you don't need them. So we have for 2 years now, we have not used our landline, even though we're still paying for it with this bundle from Cox. And so when I was in there this past week, the guy said, "Oh yeah, you can drop your phone." And not only did we drop the phone, but I got a $58 credit. So our monthly bill now is significantly lower than it was before, and I'm really tickled about that. The only thing that I miss,
Are you only getting internet service from Cox at this time?
internet and cable.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of the things that helped us when we dropped the landline for the last 2 years is Cox had a service, voice to text service, so that when voicemail comes in, even though the phones aren't even plugged in anymore, they translate the voice call to text and send it to you as a little email. So, you can scan through them, and they're mostly, your car warranty is expired, or, whatever. But at least you could get a chance to see them. And if a few calls did slip through for people that didn't know you dropped your phone line, then this was very helpful. Of course, for the past year or two now, we haven't gotten any of those. But at the beginning, it was a nice little safety feature that would let you know if somebody was sending you a message that didn't know you dropped your phone. You got it?
Thank you, Kurt. Are
Yes,
there
sir.
any other phone-related questions or non-phone related questions? David, go ahead.
Yeah, we held on to our landline for the longest time because we had a security system. ADT security required a landline. And I was getting really frustrated with the Cox costs. And so I was looking at one of these other security systems that didn't require a landline. And I said, okay, I'll order that and get rid of the ADT. Well, when it came time for me to get rid of the ADT, the people at ADT said, "Oh, no, you don't need a landline anymore." And I said, well, wait a minute, I'm going to buy this. Yeah, we'll just cancel that. We'll take care of it, and we'll actually reduce your price. And so I ended up going with that route. And so, that was the last thing I needed a landline for. And the one thing I find now is that between the wife's and my iPhones and our wristwatches, it's kind of convenient. If the phone rings on my watch when I got my watch on, I can just answer it on my watch when I'm at home. And so I don't worry too much about that. As far as batteries, of course, we have 2 EVs and there's like 60, 75 kilowatts of battery power there. So charging my iPhone or our iPhone's equipment in there is is a no-brainer. But yeah, the main thing was just that stepping away from, gee, I've always had a landline. It's been gone now for a couple of years. Don't miss it at all. Matter of fact, I had a box on our landline just to block spam calls. And I had to empty that thing every time I hit 1,000 spam calls. And I'm going, this is ridiculous. My landline is just doing nothing but answering spam calls. So, you know, I still have to deal with it on the iPhone, but at least I can handle them pretty easily with blocking them there. But now I don't have to deal with the landline. And as was pointed out earlier, years ago, I spent several years working out the Yuma Proving Ground. And most of our equipment tied into the housing out there, the Army post, was run through a very ancient, actually it looked like a museum piece, switch box, a wooden console. But we had a lot of trouble with dealing with when we were out on the range, where our equipment was set up and our phone lines out there. And it turned out that that stuff was all running on range wire, which is, you know, typically a military type of thing, which was not very reliable when we had the monsoons or the electrical storms out there. But we had to contact with our home base out of Los Angeles. And that's when I learned that, well, that we didn't have the internet so much back then, but we didn't have it. But the landlines would go to a tower that was a radio transmission tower that could go up and over into California from Yuma there. And you go like, wow, I didn't even think about it. So it wasn't wire all the way. It was wire to a transmission tower to another receiving tower back down to landline. So systems have evolved. I'm trying to evolve with it. I'm very comfortable with just not even owning a landline anymore, with what technology we have available to us. As simple as that.
Since we're talking about phones today, I wanted to show you something that was sent to me from Pennsylvania from my family. Get a load of that. Isn't that
Oh,
a
that
beauty?
was it's a very modern one. It's got a dial.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Melissa,
Actually,
do your boys understand what the dial is and how to use it?
I gave them a lengthy presentation on how this used to work because I used to play with this when I was little. I think I actually made phone calls on it once upon a time, a long time ago when I was like 3.
Yeah.
I'm just old enough, but yeah,
That's
still
great.
got its plug and everything. It's even got this really pretty inlay in it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So this is going to adorn my den. It's
Should
with
be
my
in your,
grandparents.
should be in your background.
Yeah, exactly.
along with a lava lamp.
Yeah, exactly. I should have. I do. Well, I have not the lava lamp, but I have the kind where you can touch it and it reacts to your skin. What's that called, sweetie? That type of lava lamp?
Mood.
I'm sure there's a name. A plasma. I think it's called plasma.
Well, I was going to say Jerry ought to know. He's a electrical engineer, and
Oh yeah.
Don't know.
Well, David reminded me of something that I read in my research, and that is when you're subscribing, of course, this would apply to almost anything you subscribe to, that you should consider using a disposable credit card. So if they are giving you a problem about canceling your service, you just cancel the one-time use credit card and problem solved.
Good point.
Or a reloadable gift card. I wonder if that would work too.
And I'm not sure these places accept gift cards as payment.
Well, the Visa kind.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because I think you can reload those and then you don't have to actually take out a credit card. Then it's not part of your credit report.
So just piggybacking on another thing from David's conversation, one of the reasons we hung on to a landline for so long in my last community was to allow people to contact us from a gate. So we had a gated community and it only worked on a landline. And part of the reluctance of the HOA to allow cell phone use later as technology evolved, they were afraid that somebody would call one of our residents and it would turn out that they were over in Europe and we'd have to start paying long distance fees. So gradually that kind of dissipated. It's very a rare occasion, so they gradually went to cell phone options.
I have a question. Just about every day, I fill in a form of some kind on the internet that requires me to give my phone number. And I have voice over internet. I have Verizon, and I give that number because I don't want all those people to have my cell phone number. And that's why I keep my quote landline. So what are all of you doing? Are you getting phone calls on your cell phone from all these people?
Well, that brings up an excellent point, Susan. And that point is that you can have one Google Voice number per Google email address. So if you have more than one Gmail account, then you could have a phone number attached, a Google Voice number attached to each of those Gmail addresses. So you could use those numbers to give out to people on the internet that you don't want to be bothered with.
So I've got ADT, and they have my Verizon home phone. So David, when you were talking about ADT, could I tell ADT to call my cell phone now?
Yeah, all you have to do is call them until you change the number for contacting you.
Oh, so Google, could I keep the Verizon phone number?
Yeah, you should be able to port what they call port, which means transferring the number from Verizon to Google Voice.
Now, you said if I've got more than one Gmail account, why do I need more than one?
Well, if you wanted to have multiple Google Voice phone numbers.
But you can only use one cell phone number to port to. So for example, that's what I do. So I have a Google Voice number that I publish on my website for my business purposes. And of course I get lots of spam and things like that to it, but because there's transcription, I can weed that out really quickly. I can just look at what it has. If the transcription isn't available, I'll usually listen to it a little bit. It's usually somebody hanging up because I have it configured so that whoever calls me on that Google Voice number has to identify themselves and they have to leave a message. So it's basically like an answering machine in a digital sense. So it filters all my calls for me.
Call screening would be the actual term for that.
So if somebody calls that number, if you go to my website, you'll see my phone number on there. If you call that number, you'll get my voicemail and it will ring my cell phone, but it'll show me that someone left a message, or I usually just don't answer it. If it's important enough, they'll leave a message. So like Roger said, I use it for call screening. It sounds kind of like that's what you might want to be doing. You want to have if you wanted to really get rid of your landline telephone number and just stick with a cellular telephone number, you could do what I'm doing, where I'm using my Google Voice numbers, not my throwaway number, but my number that I give out or that I let publicly facing. And then only the people that I know and trust, I give my cell phone number as if it were like a landline number. And then it's just a matter of it's a lifestyle. It's a personal responsibility thing. Then, you just have to learn how to filter those calls, make sure that your contacts app is set up with the people that you communicate with regularly. If you meet a new friend or a new doctor or a new colleague, you put it in there so that it comes up as a caller ID. And if you don't recognize the number, you don't answer it unless you're expecting a phone call. That's my policy.
Works for me too.
Susan, I have an AT&T iPhone or iPhone using AT&T.
Same
And
here.
they have a app on my phone called Call Protect. And it's an app that allows me to, if I get a spam call, I can copy down that number and put it in Call Protect, and they won't get through again.
You can
So
also block calls from
that's,
people that you don't want
yeah,
to call.
that's basically what
Yeah.
I'm saying, is that that'll block the calls.
But those are two separate features. I mean, you don't have to have that AT&T. It's nice to have that. It's a nice feature to have, but you can do it without that feature with any cellular service that you might have using the iPhone. You can block the callers.
Yes, that's how I do it. I probably have 100 people on my blocked caller list right now. And I did a little analysis about how much memory is that actually using inside
I
my
remember
cell
that.
phone. And it's like a piffle. It's,
It's negligible.
block away, block away. It's
Mhm.
you'll never run out of space because you've blocked too many callers.
Any other questions from the floor, as it were?
What color HomePod did Gretchen get?
Orange.
Cool. Cool.
Okay, now remember, there's the meeting feedback form, and it's available in the chat window. And we ask that you fill this out because the results really are valuable to us. And we use those to try to get more informed presentations for you in the future. Also, you can use that to suggest something for a special interest group meeting. One of the things I'm thinking about that might be special interest group worthy is, how do you care for your family historical photos? Now, as computer aficionados, specialists, we're probably, many of us are the recipient of, oh, cousin George found a whole stack of old black and white photos from early in the last century. Here, you take them and do something with them. And I have done that for at least one or two of my clients. And I kind of have a way that I feel of how to handle them after I've scanned them. And if that is something that might be of interest, we could do that as a special interest group meeting. Is
I'm
there
definitely interested.
Anybody
Yes.
here who would be interested in that?
I would.
Okay.
You also have scanners you can recommend?
I have a scanner here.
Did
and
you use
I've
the
had-
Fujitsu or the
have-
Epson?
I have Epson. I also have a
Epson, okay.
Fujitsu document scanner, but I have
I think Kurt has a Fujitsu, doesn't he?
he does, and he had an older one, and now I have that one.
Ah, okay. I knew there was some connection there.
And so, but that's a document scanner as opposed to a photo
Right.
scanner.
Right. That's what I
And
was curious about, how well it does with photos.
I've always had, my first photo scanner was UMax, a name that some of us old timers might remember. But since then, I've always
Trevor,
had,
the keeper of the Grimper now.
yeah. But since then, I've always had Epson. One of the things I don't like about Epson scanners is they get to a point where they go, oh, we're not going to make new software for this. We'll just sell you a new scanner.
Yep.
Another company is the company at Wacom that does the tablets. They say, oh no, we're not going to make drivers for that one. But here's another one you could buy. But in fact, the Epson scanner I have now does not have Epson software running it because it is too old. But I do have software to run it that we could also talk about in that special interest group meeting. So.
because future proofing will be a thing.
Yeah, yeah. So if there are no other questions for us at this time, I think that we're going to call it.
I have a PSA.
Okay,
This is a scanner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, it is a scanner, but it's not a photo scanner.
Unless you're my dad.
Oh, I don't know about that. There was a Google app, and I don't know if it's not
There's
being.
even something you can make out of cardboard to rest your phone in so that it positions it over it just perfectly and avoids glare and everything. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
you're not
I'm
gonna,
with Bob though. It's not quite the same as scanning it on
yeah,
glass with
you're not
DPI
gonna
and
get
everything.
a 1200 DPI 8
Yeah.
by 10 scan on your phone.
Mm.
Even
Well-
your phone, Roger.
Even my
And-
phone. But this app, which I can't seem to pull up, I thought it was called Google Photo.
I know which one you mean though. I can't remember the name of it
Anyway,
off the
it's
top of my head, but I've heard
designed,
somebody talk about it.
It's designed to take scans of photographs in glass covered frames.
Mhm.
And
Okay,
it cancels out the glare. It works very well if it's still out there. But wait a minute. Here's a app. Let's see. If
I
this is
think
it.
we covered it on one of our podcast episodes. Actually, I'll have to go back and dig through the archives. I think one of us talked about it.
speaking
we
of your
go.
podcast, Melissa, the last one was kind of scary.
Oh yeah.
uh, about digital legacy and what do you do with your
Yeah.
Facebook account and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I
Yeah.
would suggest anyone
Something
here
to think about.
who is older than Melissa should go and listen to that podcast. And where would they find that, Melissa?
You can find us on the geekiestshowever.com. That's our website. Geekiest Show. Actually, there's no the in front of it. It's just Geekiest Show Ever. That's the name of the podcast. You can go to Apple Podcasts and search for Geekiest Show Ever. And that's the latest episode that we did was called Good Grief.
And it didn't have anything to do with Charles Schultz.
No, it did not.
Okay, Roger,
We
tell
actually
us.
plan on doing some more episodes about that. Stay tuned.
That's a very interesting effect you've got there, Roger.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It
Anyway.
looks like one of those holographs from
Oh, I see.
Severance.
It went into the, anyway, the name of the app is Photo Scan.
Yeah.
So if you're, have a trip planned to relatives and they've got a bunch of pictures of the family hanging on the hallways, walls, you can just go along and capture those with this app, and it works pretty well.
That would have been really handy when I was making my grandmother's funeral collage, because that's what I was getting. People were snapping pictures with their iPhones and sending them to me. Like, oh, okay.
I just
guess I'll try to
put
work with
that
this.
photoscan.app into the chat.
Nice.
Good.
Thank you.
That will be a very interesting SIG.
So, well, everybody, I hope that you have had a good Mother's Day and have a good Memorial Day. And we will see you for the Father's Day edition and or the summer solstice edition of the Tucson Macintosh User Group.
The WWDC version.
And the WWDC. It's going to be a very busy night. So stay tuned to the same bat channel and the same bat time. And we'll see you guys next month.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Bye.